Moss, ancient, overlooked, and quietly powerful, is one of Earth's smallest miracles, thriving where other life gives up. Most people barely notice moss. It creeps up tree trunks, softens rocks, and fills the damp shadows where flowers and grasses can't survive. But behind its gentle presence is a story older than the dinosaurs. A story of survival, quiet engineering, and hidden life. Mosses were among the first plants to crawl out of the water and claim the land over 450 million years ago. Long before towering forests or blooming flowers, mosses spread like a living green mist, transforming bare rock into fertile ground. Today, they still do the same work, capturing water, holding soil together, and creating tiny ecosystems that shelter countless insects and microbes. They build a world for others to live in, one soft patch at a time. So, what is moss really? How does it thrive on stone, roofs, and forgotten walls? And why does this humble plant hold secrets that scientists and explorers are only just beginning to understand? To discover the secret life of moss, we must kneel down, look closer, and listen to the whispers of one of Earth's oldest survivors. To truly understand moss, you have to shrink down. To imagine the world not from the height of trees, but at the scale of dewdrops and soil grains. Up close, a moss patch becomes a lush forest in miniature, complete with spiky trees, tangled undergrowth, and hidden wildlife. Unlike most plants we know, moss has no true roots. Instead, it clings to stone, bark, or soil with tiny filaments called rhizoids, which anchor it in place, but don't suck up nutrients like ordinary roots do. Moss drinks directly through its leaves, slender green blades that catch rain, mist, and even the moisture drifting through fog. Because mosses are so good at holding water, they transform dry rock into moist habitats. A patch of moss can soak up rain like a sponge, slowly releasing it to the soil below. In forests, moss acts as a natural reservoir, feeding streams and rivers long after storms have passed. In this damp micro-world, whole communities thrive. Tiny insects scurry through moss forests. Microscopic creatures called tardigrades, the famous water bears, crawl among the leaves, surviving drought and freezing cold thanks to moss's shelter. So the next time you see a velvety patch of green on a wall or forest floor, look closer. Beneath that simple surface is a hidden metropolis, alive with creatures, moisture, and ancient cycles that keep our ecosystems in balance. But how does moss survive in places where other plants would wither and die? The secret lies in its astonishing toughness, a resilience learned through hundreds of millions of years. Moss is nature's master of survival, a tiny plant that can thrive where others fail. While lush forests and delicate flowers depend on deep soil, steady rain, and warm seasons, mosses ask for very little. One of their secrets is desiccation tolerance, the remarkable ability to dry out completely and spring back to life when water returns. Imagine a flower wilting in the sun. Once it dries, it's gone for good. But moss can lose almost all its moisture, become dormant, and wait patiently for the next rainfall, sometimes for years. When rain or morning dew arrives, the shriveled green comes back to life in minutes, soaking up water through its leaves. Some mosses have another talent. They can survive freezing solid in winter and thaw unharmed in spring. In Arctic tundra, mosses lie under snow for months, then leap into growth the moment sunlight returns. This quiet toughness has inspired scientists studying how life might survive on Mars or how to create drought-resistant crops. By decoding the genes that help moss survive drying out, researchers hope to learn tricks that could help protect food plants in a warming world. So, the next time you brush your hand across a patch of moss, remember, you're touching one of the oldest, most adaptable survivors on the planet. But moss isn't just about survival. It also shapes the world around it in subtle, surprising ways, creating soil, taming floods, and storing secrets deep within its tiny leaves. While moss might seem like nothing more than a green carpet underfoot, it's actually a silent architect, reshaping landscapes one tiny patch at a time. In forests and mountains, moss helps build soil, something we often take for granted. When moss colonizes bare rock, its tiny roots and acid-producing cells slowly break down stone into grains of sand and minerals. Dead moss adds organic matter, creating the first thin layer of soil where ferns, grasses, and trees can take root. Over centuries, entire forests owe their beginnings to the patient work of mosses. Without them, bare rock would remain just that, lifeless and barren. Moss also acts as nature's sponge. In bogs and wetlands, thick mats of moss, especially sphagnum moss, can soak up huge amounts of rain, controlling floods by releasing water slowly over time. Sphagnum moss alone covers about 1% of Earth's land surface, storing more fresh water than all the world's rivers combined. These bogs hold another secret. They lock away carbon, helping regulate Earth's climate. Layers of moss grow, die, and pile up, forming peat, a dense, spongy layer that traps carbon for thousands of years. Destroy these mossy wetlands, and that ancient carbon escapes back into the atmosphere, fueling climate change. So next time you pass a mossy swamp or a misty bog, know this. What looks like a soggy patch of ground is actually a powerful climate engine working silently to keep Earth's balance in check. But moss's impact isn't just global. It also protects the tiny worlds hidden right beneath our feet. Beneath each mossy patch lies a hidden shelter, a safe haven for tiny creatures that depend on moss's damp, stable world. While towering trees get all the glory, moss forests at ground level are bustling cities for the smallest life forms. In the shady layers of moss, springtails, mites and beetles scurry through a maze of tiny leaves, feeding on decaying matter and helping break it down into rich soil. Spiders weave delicate webs between moss stalks, waiting for unsuspecting prey. One of the strangest moss residents is the tardigrade or water bear, one of the toughest creatures on Earth. These microscopic animals waddle through moss forests like slow-moving tanks. When conditions get dry, they curl up into a hardened state called a ton, shutting down their metabolism almost completely. In this suspended animation, they can survive radiation, freezing, the vacuum of space, all thanks to the safe, moist shelter moss provides when water returns. Scientists often collect moss samples to find these hidden worlds. A single handful can contain thousands of microscopic animals, an entire zoo you'd never see with the naked eye. And these tiny communities don't just live in the moss, they help it too. They recycle nutrients, keep harmful fungi in check, and form an unseen partnership that keeps the moss ecosystem healthy. In a way, moss acts like a miniature rainforest canopy, sheltering countless species that would disappear without its spongy embrace. But moss doesn't only matter to creatures at ground level. For centuries, humans too have turned to moss, for warmth, healing, and even survival in the wild. Throughout history, moss has quietly served humans in ways most people have long forgotten. Our ancestors knew the soft green carpet wasn't just decoration, it was a tool for survival. In ancient times, indigenous peoples and early settlers used moss as nature's insulation. Its sponge-like texture made it perfect for lining boots and bedding, keeping cold and damp at bay during harsh winters. Hunters stuffed moss into boots for warmth and dryness on long treks through forests and bogs. Moss's natural absorbency made it an early bandage too. Long before modern medicine, people used soft sphagnum moss to dress wounds. During World War I, when medical supplies ran short, battlefield medics packed soldiers' injuries with clean, dried sphagnum moss. Its mild acidity and absorbent fibers helped keep wounds clean and dry, a life-saving trick when antibiotics were scarce. In the far north, moss helped build shelters. Arctic peoples used it to caulk gaps in log cabins, insulate roofs, or soak up spills. In forests and survival situations today, bushcrafters still use moss to plug leaks, filter water in emergencies, or even help start fires when dry. Moss's uses don't stop there. Some cultures brewed it into teas or ground it into poultices to treat infections. Gardeners today value certain mosses for their ability to keep soil moist or decorate shaded gardens with living green carpets. Quietly, patiently, moss has always been there, a soft green helper under our feet. Yet even with all these uses, its most fascinating role might be how it shapes the future of science and technology. Today, scientists are turning back to moss with fresh eyes, discovering that this ancient plant could help us solve modern problems, from climate change to medicine. Researchers study moss genes to learn how these tiny plants survive extreme dehydration. By unlocking this secret, they hope to engineer crops that can withstand severe droughts, a critical need in a warming world where water is becoming more precious. Some scientists are also exploring moss's power as a natural filter. Certain moss species can absorb heavy metals and pollutants from water and air, acting like a living sponge that cleans the environment. In cities with dirty air, researchers are experimenting with moss walls, vertical gardens that capture dust, filter pollutants, and cool down urban spaces. There's even promise for moss in medicine and materials science. Compounds found in moss have shown antibacterial properties, sparking new ideas for natural wound dressings or gentle preservatives. In peat bogs, layers of sphagnum moss hold massive amounts of carbon, more than all the world's forests combined. Protecting these mossy wetlands could help slow climate change by locking away carbon that would otherwise warm the atmosphere. Moss is also finding its way into architecture and art, transforming dull concrete into living green walls that breathe life into cities. In the lab and in the wild, this small plant is proving that it can do big things, quietly offering solutions that blend nature's resilience with modern science. So, what does the future hold for moss? To answer that, we need to look at the threats it faces and why protecting this ancient green carpet is more important than ever. Despite its toughness, moss faces growing threats in our rapidly changing world. Climate change, pollution, and habitat destruction are putting pressure on moss communities that have survived for millions of years. Rising temperatures and shifting rainfall patterns are drying out wetlands and bogs where sphagnum moss thrives. When these mossy wetlands are damaged, drained for farming or peat mining, they release huge stores of carbon, adding fuel to the climate crisis. Urban expansion and deforestation strip away shaded forests where delicate moss species cling to old trees and rotting logs. Air pollution, especially acid rain, can damage moss colonies that depend on clean, moist air to grow. Even the moss in your local park or backyard can struggle when people trample it or tear it up without realizing its importance. Once damaged, many mosses grow back painfully slowly. Some species expand only a few millimeters a year. Scientists are working to protect these living sponges. In some places, bogs are being restored by blocking drainage ditches, allowing sphagnum moss to bounce back and lock away carbon once more. Researchers monitor rare moss species and study how they respond to pollution, hoping to find ways to help them adapt. And people, too, can play a role. by learning to appreciate the green carpets underfoot and understanding that this humble plant holds the threads of ancient ecosystems together. Next time you see moss, remember, it's not just decoration. It's a time traveler, an engineer, a healer, and a guardian of balance. But its story doesn't end with survival alone. Moss has also inspired art, poetry, and even the way we see beauty in forgotten places. Beyond its scientific power and quiet engineering, moss has long inspired poets, artists, and dreamers to see beauty in the small and overlooked corners of the world. In Japanese gardens, moss is celebrated as a symbol of age, tranquility, and impermanence. Some of Japan's most revered temple gardens are lush carpets of soft green moss, carefully nurtured for centuries to create a living sense of calm. Visitors wander narrow paths, listening to water trickle over stones, surrounded by velvety green that softens sharp edges and invites quiet reflection. In art and literature, moss appears as a whisper of time, a gentle reminder that nature reclaims what humans abandon. Moss growing on ancient statues or forgotten ruins transforms decay into beauty, turning crumbling stone into a place where life returns, no matter how slowly. Poets have long found inspiration in moss's resilience. Its softness hides fierce strength, its stillness masks constant change. In the cracks of city walls, on the roofs of old houses, moss shows us that life endures, patient, humble, and persistent. In a world that races forward at breakneck speed, moss invites us to slow down, to see the tiny forest under our feet, to breathe in damp air, feel the cool softness, and remember that even the smallest things can carry deep wisdom. For some, moss has even become a teacher, a symbol of sustainability, reminding us that life doesn't need to be loud or fast to make a difference. Sometimes the most powerful things grow quietly, holding the earth together, one tiny leaf at a time. The secret life of moss is a story of survival, transformation, and quiet strength, a tale told in the green whispers beneath our feet. Though small and unassuming, moss has shaped the earth, nurtured life, and inspired generations. From ancient forests to city walls, from the Arctic tundra to tropical bogs, moss teaches us resilience and humility. It reminds us that life often thrives in the shadows, and that even the tiniest organism can make a vast impact. As we face a future of environmental challenges and rapid change, moss stands as both a guardian and a guide, showing us how to live lightly on the earth, protect fragile ecosystems, and find beauty in simplicity. So next time you pass a patch of moss, kneel down and look closer. You're witnessing a living relic, a world builder, a green miracle, a secret life unfolding quietly all around us.